All right, hello, Professor, and thank you again for letting me do this. Before I start, I just want to let you know, sorry for me sitting down. The green screen, it doesn't really go too high or too low, so I tried standing up, and my head was cut off. So I'll be sitting down for this, and I'm only wearing headphones just so I can hear my voice. Otherwise, it's kind of weird recording this. But yeah, so let's get into it. So my presentation today is on the MacArthur Foundation. My name is Cameron Rohde. All right, so getting into this, here is the overview. So at first, we're going to be talking about just MacArthur. Second, we're going to be talking about who is/are the MacArthurs. Then third, we're going to be talking about the currently accomplishing, currently what they're doing now. Fourth, we're going to be talking about their milestones. And then, of course, fifth, we're going to talk about the Carnegie's ideals and overall the MacArthur's ideals to see if right now the foundation is doing exactly what they wanted to do since the start. All right, so let's begin. So about MacArthur. So formally, the foundation, the documents were actually completed on October 18th, 1970. MacArthur was pretty much about supporting the creative people, the effective institutions, the influential networks, and building more of just like a verdant and peaceful world. So that's actually like their mission statement when they started. And pretty much, they just want to just create a place where they can support as many people as possible. And honestly, they've been doing so. So the MacArthur Foundation has provided a few, well, not just a few, definitely a large amounts of bets on some of the world's most social challenges. These are including the over-incarceration, the global climate change, the nuclear risk, and of course, the increasing financial capital for the social sector. The MacArthur program hits on way more than just these social challenges. They hit on so many other social challenges, but these are the ones that are most broad looked at, and then they just kind of go down in the list below. So now moving on to, well, not the foundation, but who are and who is the MacArthurs. So the MacArthurs, so John D. MacArthur, and then Catherine T. MacArthur were the husband and wife that pretty much created the MacArthur's Foundation. They were the ones that have funded it. John lived from 1897 to 1978, and the reason I put that date in there is because that date's really specific when it comes to him passing away. During that time period, he was one of the 3 wealthiest men in America at the time of his death. They were estimating, I didn't get an exact number on how much he actually was worth, but they're estimating billions and billions. And right now, billions and billions and billions of dollars is worth obviously a ton. So I can't imagine being $1 billion in the 1978s. That's just crazy to think. But unfortunately, John MacArthur did pass away from cancer. And once he did that, all his assets, which were also confirmed by Catherine, were assumed to the foundation, and they're estimating it to be over $1 billion. So moving on to Catherine, obviously the wife of John. Catherine was not only his partner in his lifetime, but also his business partner. Catherine had a huge role once John passed away in the foundation to kind of get it started. And now moving on to the William T. Kirby. William T. Kirby kind of played a huge role in the start of the MacArthur's Foundation. William really brought together well, what are you going to do with your billions? What's going to happen? You don't really have any kids. What are you going to do with all this wealth? And John's well, what should I do? And William was kind of the longtime friend, we say there. Obviously, he was an attorney as well, but the longtime friend, he goes, why don't you just start a foundation? And that's what they did. They started one of the biggest foundations. MacArthur is now obviously the biggest foundation. Well, not the biggest, but one of the biggest foundations out there. But yeah, so William T. Kirby was that longtime friend that really helped the MacArthurs kind of figure out what to do with all their wealth. They didn't really have any other options. They kind of just well, we could just give it to charity or start their own foundation. And they started their own foundation. So now moving on to they're currently accomplishing. So I wanted to kind of touch on kind of one of the 4 main things that they're currently doing. There's plenty when I say plenty, I mean like plenty of things that the MacArthur Foundation is actually doing. But these were the 4 that kind of like stood out when I was doing my research. Like these 4, the climate solutions, the criminal justice, the nuclear challenges, and then the on Nigeria topic were kind of like the 4 ones that I kind of just like them saw and like mostly saw what they're all about. So I decided I just wanted to touch on these 4. So we're gonna be individually going through these 4, and just kind of like showing you guys a little bit aspect of what exactly these things are about. All right, so the first one, climate solutions. So the climate solutions, its main like mission, they kind of have like missions for each one of these. It said working to prevent climate change by curbing emissions and supporting global leadership on climate solutions. So basically, like, I mean, most of these are kind of broad because like there's definitely like different topics below them, but it's pretty much like helping out our climate and pretty much trying to support the green in our world. So far since 2014, the MacArthur Foundation did $291.7 million to 72 different organizations, and then they had multiple different grants for these organizations. So it's pretty cool to see like the massive amount of numbers. Like I was expecting, 291.7 million for all these 4, but like that was just like the first one. So that was pretty cool for the climate solutions. So now moving on to criminal justice. Their mission statement for the criminal justice part is working to address over-incarcerated by changing the way America thinks about and uses fails. So kind of just like add a little bit on there. So I kind of, at first, like now, of course, I understand what the like really means, but I had to do some like other research on what exactly like they meant by criminal justice in that mission statement. They pretty much just wanted to make like a difference on like how America thinks about the laws and how we actually pursue what happens with those laws, like if someone breaks it and stuff like that. This was probably the one that I spent the most time on, just because it caught my interest like a lot. Just because like obviously there probably could be ways that America could do better with the justice system, but obviously we're doing ways that they're doing good, which is really cool to see, because in these 101 organizations since 2013 that they did help, they supported both. Like they weren't just like, well, they need to fix the justice system. No, they were like, we need to fix certain parts, but they also like, we also need to continue doing certain parts like certain ways. So yeah, that was pretty cool to see. But they did $184.2 million in those 101 organizations. So now moving on to the nuclear challenges. So that mission statement was working to reduce nuclear threats by decreasing the availability and use of weapons usable for material. So that mission statement was pretty clear. They literally were just focusing on making sure that the nuclear materials to create nuclear objects were put in the right hands, basically. We didn't want that availability to go to people that were looking to use the nuclear materials for negative causes. So $90.3 million were put into these 80 different organizations since 2014. Now, we have to remember that like MacArthur isn't like the foundation that really goes and does these. They are more of the foundation that like helps these other foundations out and supports them to look into these issues. And then the last of the 4 that I wanted to talk about was the on Nigeria topic. So this is the newest, one of the newest areas that they're working on. So this mission statement was reducing corruption by supporting Nigerian-led efforts that strengthen accountability, transparency, and participation. So one of MacArthur's newest projects, which on Nigeria, is also getting supported tremendously from this foundation. I couldn't really get like a full how much money they spent on this program so far. Like the other ones like had like a pretty like exact number. But just like the other ones, this one also had a lot of grants. They had like, I can't remember the exact number, but they had like 4 representative grants, and right now, like so far, the millions and millions of dollars are putting towards on Nigeria, and which is honestly a lot of money, because this one is not like as broad as the other topics. So that's pretty cool to see. All right, so now we're moving on to the milestones. it was really hard to pick out which milestones I wanted to put in this. Obviously, I didn't want to talk about the milestones for too long, but I didn't want to talk about it for too short. And one of my resources for my paper was literally a page that just had milestones. Like it's amazing how much the MacArthur Foundation has done, not only for their community, which is Chicago, but like the whole entire like the community that they follow. So the first one, it comes from a quote. The MacArthur Fellows Program is the foundation's most recognized avenue of funding. It annually awards genius grants to a group of 20 to 30 talented, innovative, and creative individuals from a broad range of fields. To hit on that one a little bit, so this program, literally, like, anyone can go into it, and it rewards, like, these groups of 20 to 30 people that pretty much just bring their talents to them and say, like, look at what I could do. I want to help out this specific thing in the world. This is how I want to do it. And MacArthur's like, you know what? We're going to pick 20 to 30 of these individuals and we're going to fund them, which is awesome. Like, it's very awesome because, like, it's not just picked from, like, the high-ranking schools. This is literally, like, any single person can come into this and be like, this is what I want. This is what I want to try to do. Will you guys fund me? Boom. So the second one is they have plenty of programs like the MacArthur Fellows, the 100 and Change, the Chicago Commitment. And speaking of the Chicago Commitment had like a whole specific page dedicated to what they're doing to help Illinois and specifically Chicago. As we know, Chicago is becoming like a really, it's kind of unfortunate to say this, but like bad place to live right now. There's just more and more traffic, which induces more and more bad things. So they're really helping the Chicago to become the Chicago that they knew. But they also working in the journalism and media, and then the technology and public interest, impact investments, and plenty of more programs. There's one more milestone that I did want to also like hit on, is they do this $100 million competition grant for one person. This grant is specifically for someone that they see fits in their eyes what they want to do in the future. So what I kind of mean by that is like they have this competition and it's all these individuals, any type of individual, any age, they come in and say like, I want to start a foundation that does this. And they explain why, how it help, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And then they do $100 million to the winner, just flat. Like there's no like ties. There's no like, it's literally like, we believe in you. We want to see this foundation be created and be successful. Here is $100 million. So that's yeah, that's, I would say, I know some people are like, why is that a milestone? But like that's a huge milestone to say like we literally just give like $100 million to individuals every year just so they can follow their dreams. Like that's huge. That's a huge milestone in my eyes, and I also wanted to share that. So now we're going to kind of move on to our last kind of part of the presentation and our class kind of the last kind of thing I wanted to hit on, which was like Carnegie's ideals and the MacArthur's ideals. So what I kind of mean by that is I kind of took it as like what we learned from reading about the Carnegie is like a certain part, but MacArthur like easily surpassed the Carnegie's like ideals of what he wanted in foundations like nonprofits. The reason I say that is because MacArthur's like continued success and like their billions of dollars like going towards like all these like different resources, foundations, individuals, and all the impact that MacArthur does for the like not themselves but like the community, like I think fits in like Carnegie's ideals like perfectly. And honestly, like I said, surpasses Carnegie. I feel like Carnegie was trying to hit like on a broad range of nonprofits and being like, this is what I want to see for all of them. But I feel like MacArthur has been around for so long and just has the right people on their board that just it really just kind of creates like a standpoint of how high you can go with the nonprofits. So moving on to the MacArthur's ideals, and what I mean by this is like, how would the founders, Mr. and Mr. MacArthur, like feel if they saw the MacArthur's Foundation now? And I honestly think they would just break down in like tears. From what I've like researched about them too, and how they were kind of like seeing and how they would want to see the foundation go, I feel like this foundation just blows out of the water what they wanted. Especially since John MacArthur, he didn't really know what he wanted to do with like the billions of dollars that he created for himself. I think that like since he was kind of like, yeah, let's just do a foundation, like let's help other people, and now like they've literally helped millions and millions and millions of people, I think they would just be amazed. So 100% yes, they have. I mean, the MacArthur wins the top tier foundation, and with so many lives changed, I think it's definitely something that the MacArthurs and their attorney William would be super proud of if they could see it today. So that is all I had for today's presentation. I do want to thank you again, teacher, for allowing me to do it this way. I know we talked a little bit after class, our last class period. I would highly recommend doing this or maybe offering this to other students, because me personally, I'm way more comfortable doing this than doing presentations in class. I feel more prepared doing it this way. I can kind of just relax a little bit more and be in my own setting. I mean, obviously we also want to learn, so maybe recording these and posting them somewhere and then maybe like listening to them in class would be a great idea. But that's just my opinion. I just do want to say thank you again for allowing me to do it this way. Thank you again for a great semester and everything that I learned. I think I had to do in 3 different classes. So thank you. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.